Eric V Klipping was king of Denmark and son of Christopher I. Until 1264 he ruled under the auspices of his mother, the competent Queen Dowager Margaret Sambiria. Between 1261 and 1262, Eric was a prisoner in Holstein following a military defeat. Afterwards, he was brought up in Brandenburg. Nickname. The king's nickname, Klipping or Klipping, refers to a medieval coin that has become clipped or cut in order to indicate devaluation. A former popular explanation that Eric blinked more than usual is now generally rejected. The nickname is an unkind reference to his lack of trustworthiness. He shortchanged his people and the monarchy. Reign. When his father Christopher was murdered, Prince Eric was too young to rule in his own right. The Danish court appointed his mother, Queen Margaret Sambiria, as regent. She was the daughter of Count Sambor II of Pomerania and was a clever and intelligent woman. Immediately she had to fight to keep her son on the throne from two powerful enemies in Archbishop Jacob Erlandsen, who excommunicated the bishop who anointed young Eric as king, and Duke Valdemar of southern Jutland. Taking advantage of the situation, Chief Jarima II of Rügen gathered an army of Wends and invaded Zealand. Queen Margaret raised an army but was soundly defeated in 1259 near Ringsted. Jarima went on to attack and pillage Copenhagen later that year. He shipped his army to Skane to continue his campaign. Unfortunately for him, he encountered the wrath of a farmer's wife who killed him outright. The Wends fled back to Rügen, believing the Wendish incursion showed the queen was weak. Duke Valdemar rebelled. The queen was forced to raise another army and march to Jutland to put the duke in his place. She defeated the duke, and while he negotiated a truce with her, he gathered allies in northern Germany to help him attack. The combined forces defeated Queen Margaret at the Battle of Loheath. She and her son Eric were captured and she was forced to cede all royal properties in southern Jutland to secure her release. Margaret released Archbishop Erlandsen from prison thinking he would be grateful, but he issued interdict over all of Denmark, trying to force Queen Margaret and Eric off the throne. In 1263, acting as regent of Denmark, the Queen wrote to Pope Urban IV asking him to intervene with Archbishop Erlandsen. After several years of quibbling, the Pope agreed to several items the Queen wanted. Urban IV issued a dispensation to alter the terms of the Danish succession that would permit women to inherit the Danish throne. This would make it possible for one of Eric's sisters to become the reigning Queen of Denmark in the event of Eric V's death, because he had no children. Although Urban IV gave his consent, it never became an issue. Eric's son, Erik Menved, eventually succeeded to the Danish throne. As an adult ruler, Eric tried to enforce his power over the church and nobility. In the 1270s, Eric Klipping attacked Småland. His conflict with the church was brought to a satisfying result with the help of the Pope. By 1282, he had so offended the nobles throughout Denmark that he was forced to accept a charter which limited his authority and guaranteed the ancient rights and customs which preserved the power of the nobles. Mysterious death. Legend has it that several nobles swore an oath that they would murder Eric in revenge for personal slights, a policies the king enforced that they did not like. Chief among the conspirators was Marshal Stig Andersen Hvide and Jacob Nielsen, Count of Halland. They paid Rein Johnson, one of the king's companions, to keep them informed as to the king's activities, in order to fulfill their oath. November 1286 found the king at Viborg in central Jutland. After a long day's hunt in the countryside led by Rein Johnson, the king and a few attendants couldn't find the way back to the king's farm at Viborg. Rein suggested that they take shelter for the night of the 22nd of November 1286 in the church barn in the village of Finderup. The assassins, dressed as Franciscan monks, were kept informed as to the king's whereabouts and waited for everyone to settle down for the night. Once the king fell asleep, they rushed from the hiding places and stabbed and hacked the king to death. Tradition has it that he received 56 stab wounds. The folktale that grew up around this event has Stig Anderson personally striking the first blows in revenge for King Eric's seduction of Stig's wife while Stig himself was off with the king's army. Eric's bloody corpse was discovered the next morning. The court immediately blamed the nation's most powerful nobleman Marsk Stig Anderson HVD and Count Jacob of Halland and outlawed them. Whether they actually had anything to do with the murder remains a mystery. Stig fled the country to take up piracy. Certainly Stig Anderson was not the only person who had reason to want to see King Eric eliminated. Duke Valdemar of southern Jutland and Jacob Erlandsson's appointments to bishoprics were bitter enemies until the king's death. Eric's death meant that the rights and guarantees the 1282 charter lost their effectiveness, since the next king would not be bound by the same agreement issue with his wife Agnes of Brandenburg, whom he married on the 11th of November 1273. Eric VI of Denmark. Christopher II of Denmark. Margaret married Birger of Sweden. The Valdemar Richezet married Lord Nicholas II of Werle. Her great-great-great-grandson, Christian I, would one day become King of Denmark, Norway and Sweden. Katharina Elizabeth. Ancestry.